All right, Carlos, can you talk me through this year's youth intake?
So.
Looks like we've got fairly decent depth most areas, apart from attackers. Like a bit more detail on that guy.
Boss, that's your son.
Hold on, no, I don't have a son. Like, no.
It is true, boss.
Really?
Yes, and is a striker.
Come here closer. Is he any good? Is he above 3-star potential?
4-star.
Okay, so we should sign him.
Definitely.
Okay. Oh, I've got a son. He's not awful.
There's a party in the streets and the city's on fire.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 17 of the New Zealand Builder Nation, here with the All Whites and AFC Auckland on Shaun Does FM. I hope you're doing well, a little bit better than me, because we've got all sorts coming up in today's episode. 2 games in the A-League where we take on the Western Sydney Wanderers and Perth Glory. Also, we've done some transfers, got rid of those players whose contracts were expiring, and we've had a youth intake, including my son. So that's something. A part Uruguayan son. So if you're looking forward to seeing how my son looks from 15 years ago, I got that done quite early on a night out in Nelson apparently. But if you're looking forward to seeing what he looks like, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video. And if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, also consider hitting that subscribe button and turning that notification bell on as well before we delve in to the utter madness that has just dropped into this inbox. We've gone for quite a bit off the back of yesterday's episode where we did take on the Melbourne Victory as well as Adelaide United. If you missed that episode, I'll leave a link to it over in the top right corner. We've actually gone forward to mid-January, but at the start of January 2025, we did get our second youth intake of the save. It's only an average one. Don't know how useful some of these players will be, but thankfully won't have to quite get rid of my son, because he's one of the more promising ones that we do have through this year's youth intake. Say hello to Adam Does FM. The mother did a great job there with the name, I guess, but he's a 15-year-old, which means given that I'm 35 years old in game, I got down to business quite early, I think, on a night out in Nelson, but he is one of the more promising players through this year's youth intake. Born in April, 4-star potential, is a striker, so it could be of use to us, to be fair, with that potential. He will probably get some preferential treatment being my son and all, but he actually looks like quite a promising player. Good bravery, good teamwork, good work rate, just like his father. Interesting stuff to talk about him with though. This could take a little while delving into the depths of the history of my son. Happiness wise, he's quite happy here, holds me in the highest regard as a manager, even though up until today's episode didn't know he existed. More interesting is the information page. He is born in Nelson, which is good because that's the city I was living in 15 years ago when he was born. But he is part Uruguayan and has good knowledge of Spanish. So I think that means that's from the mother's side. So that's interesting. If any of my wife's family are watching this video, this is a fictitious game. This is not real life, trust me. This is not some bombshell off the back of the honeymoon that happened in real life. But anyway, yeah, part Uruguayan. Yep, that's interesting. But he is one of the better players coming through this year's youth intake. My son and Adam Does FM. So expect to see quite a bit of him throughout the rest of the course of this save. I was actually thinking about coming back and starting him in a cup game for the first one in today's episode. But unfortunately, because he doesn't turn 16 until April, couldn't do that. And also, after we signed him, he broke his toe and is out for 1 month to 2 months. So unfortunately, not a good start there for Adam here at AFC Auckland, but he's one of the most promising players through this year's youth intake and is also my son. Just one downside with him, he is unambitious, which is not ideal, I dare say. Might have got that from me, not from the mother. But anyway, there's my part Uruguayan son and Adam Does FM. Everyone say hello to Adam. He'll be starring throughout the save. And because he's come through so early, might mean there's a chance at some point during the save we could get some grandkids to manage during the save, which would be very, very weird. That's definitely the first time I've had a son in game. If we got some grandkids, that would be proper weird. But there's the star pupil from this year's youth intake, obviously. Masan. Also some players with decent potential, albeit as you can see average intake, so it wasn't that great, but a few others with 4-star potential. Keith Watts, who is a left winger, and all the rest have only 3.5-star potential, albeit John Nolan, 1.5-star current ability, so could prove quite useful in that central attacking midfield role or out on the right wing. And the other player with decent current ability and potential is Simon Thomas, yet another player who can play in that central attacking midfield position. So those are the picks of this year's youth intake. I wouldn't expect to see too much of these guys, just considering that most of them don't have great potential, 3.5 stars for the most of them, and going down. Of these guys, only Wesley, Ingham and Paris Dudley, the wing-backs, got signed, saying as they had 3-star potential, but overall it was not that good a youth intake, but thankfully my son was in it, which made it a whole lot better, apart from the slightly weird fact that he is part Uruguayan, albeit, seeing as he's a striker, could end up being a Luis Suarez or a Darwin Núñez for us, so maybe that will work out quite nicely. If he's half as good as those two, he will tear up the A-League, will my boy. And going forward to where we pick things up for today's episode for the first of our 2 games, and just confirming, even if we wanted to play him in that most recent cup game, we couldn't, because unfortunately he is currently out with a broken toe. But we have got through quite a bit of football off the back of yesterday's episode, just to try and get up to some more interesting fixtures in the A-League. Lots of them did look quite winnable. Thankfully, that has been the case in most competitions. Unfortunately, she lost the first game off the back of yesterday's episode, albeit with a rotated team when we were taking part in the Australian League Cup second round. Yet again, we get knocked out in our first game in that competition. It was away over in Perth against the Glory, and we suffered a 1-0 defeat. Hopefully, in the second game of today's episode, we can get some revenge for that, but unfortunately, didn't quite step up in this game. Also, Nathan Lobo suffered an injury, which is not ideal. Currently have a few injuries here at AFC Auckland, but a 1-0 defeat there thanks to a 20-minute goal from Corey Sutherland. So they again get knocked out early in the Australian League Cup. It does mean now our hopes of a treble have gone down to a double very quickly, but of course that is the competition the board don't care too much about, and that is confirmed by that little bit here, talking about how we just need to be competitive in that competition. They are pleased with that off the back of that 1-0 loss. Also, you will notice there among the absolute chaos that has gone on off the back of yesterday's episode, also in the process of a takeover. We'll see just how serious that is. Of course, that can happen in FM and then drop out quite quickly. But considering the club isn't in too good a place financially, a takeover might not be the worst thing. But before we can think about that, we've got the first game to play of today's episode. Also some transfers to run through, and as well as that, the rest of the games that we have played off the back of yesterday's episode. We've played 4 in the A-League and thankfully won them all. 1-0 away at Sydney Olympic. This one a bit closer than you might expect. The goal did come through Gavin Tormeen on the 69-minute mark. Very fitting considering what's just dropped in the inbox with the Sun in the youth intake. Also beat Avondale away from home. That was probably the trickiest of the games we have played since yesterday's episode. A 4-2 win, to be fair. Got a good lead nice and early in this game of 4-0. They did come back in the second half, but thankfully we held on for a comfortable 2-goal win. Off the back of that, took on South Melbourne at Mount Smart. Won that one 3-0. Goals to Ronaldo, Ihataran and Bruce Azumi in the second half. And before we played the 6th round of the Australian Cup, we took on Western United away from home and picked up a 2-0 win. Goals to Tormeen and to Jack Henry Sinclair. So things have gone well for us in the A-League. And also, as you can see, in the Australia Cup, first up, took on Hume City. Third up off the back of yesterday's episode, a 4-1 win there thanks to goals to Louis Toomey. Jack Henry Sinclair picked up a double, and also Georgios Victoros got his head on the end of one late to pick up a 4-1 win, cancel a goal, which was scored by a New Zealander in Riley Bordeaux. And then, in the game I was hoping, give my son his debut, and up until I realised broken toe and not old enough, we beat Pescoval 3-1 thanks to goals to Victor Rochette again, and a double to a new left winger in Georgi Fernandes. That is a player who we have signed off the back of yesterday's episode. The reason for that is because we have sold those 2 players whose contracts were expiring. Going to look at the transfer history. That was Stefan Marinovic and Mohamed Ihataran. Actually got a fee for Mohamed Ihataran, thankfully. £39,000. He went to AC Reggiani over in Serie A in Italy, so that was good, getting a fee there for a player that we did sign on a free at the start of the save. Honestly, a little bit disappointing that we did have to let him go, but he wasn't going to sign a new contract here. Had me as a rival, which did mean he told me to go F myself when he did depart the club, which wasn't too nice, so he can go stuff himself as well, the 22-year-old who is from the Netherlands. Did a decent job for us, but in the end had players in his way like Ronald, Tormeen, and also Stefan Malk's actually been really important for us in that cam role, so it was probably the best that we did let go of Mohamed Hataran, make a slight profit on him, but honestly, he would have been quite useful for the national team if we could have kept him here, the former Juventus and Ajax player. So unfortunately, Mohamed Hataran no longer at the club. Neither is Stefan Marinovic, albeit this one not as big a worry because, of course, we did get Michael Wood to come in on a free transfer and he has arrived from Japan, but Stefan Marinovic was our backup goalkeeper, didn't play too much for us. Let him go on a free, just really wanted to get rid of his £7,000 a week wage, which was taking up a large proportion of our wage budget. And thankfully, that is now under control because Michael Wood, he came in and is being paid a lot less. We'll show you Michael Wood. He came in on New Year's Day from Kyoto Sanga. He is here on £3,500 a week, so half the price we were paying for Stefan Marinovic's wage. And to be fair, he is a better, more promising goalkeeper and only 26 years old. He'll get some game time in the cup games that we do have coming up. Of course, these days, just the Australian Cup. Hopefully, we can go quite deep in that tournament, albeit next up, we are playing the Western Sydney Wanderers again in the 7th round, the last round before the quarterfinals of that competition. But Michael Wood these days is at the club with his 8 caps from the national teams, 2 national team goalkeepers here at AFC Auckland, 2 current ones anyway. And the winger that we signed to come in and be the backup to Grevin Tormeen on that left-hand side and replace Hataran was the player who scored 2 goals in that cup game that we just played in Georgi Fernandze. He is a 21-year-old from Georgia and attribute-wise actually quite similar to Mohamed Hataran for that left winger role, can also cover central attacking midfield and striker, so he's pretty similar to Hataran, just doesn't have that issue with me being a rival, so hopefully he'll be quite good for us, and at 21 years old is someone who we could build up in the future to feature for us in the All Whites, hopefully as well. We can get Adam Does FM into that situation, albeit with 4-star potential. That might be a bit more of a stretch, but we'll try our best there with our son. But Georgi Fernandze previously had a spell on loan at Frosinone over in Serie A, albeit didn't play any games, but his only parent club so far has been Sabatalo over in Georgia. Hasn't played too much of late in the last couple of seasons, which is surprising because he does look like a very good player. Hopefully he can be of some use to us here as the replacement for Mohamed Hataran. So that's what's happened transfer-wise off the back of those last couple of games that we have played. Obviously, Fernandze doing a decent job on debut with 2 goals, picking up player of the match, and also one of those did come from the penalty spot, so a good penalty option there. In Fernandze, just looking, he has got 11 penalty taking, just comparing that to our usual taker in Tormeen. Not quite as good, but of course both of them won't usually be on the pitch, I would say, for the rest of the season. Fernandze probably the backup to Tormeen, but Tormeen actually not quite as good looking as him as that left winger. So maybe next season we give the youngster a bit more game time, but for the rest of this season, I think we'll stick with what's been working so far. Grevin Tormeen so far being one of the better players in this save. So I think that's all that we need to cover off before we look forward to the matches coming up in today's episode, apart from the fact I need to show you guys the table, because a big change on the A-League. We have actually gone up to top spot. Central Coast have been dropping points since you were last here, and it's quite a significant gap as well. On top of the league, we're 6 points clear of the Mariners, and with a massive goal differential advantage as well. Hopefully, we can pick up wins in both games in today's episode before we come back tomorrow. Take those guys on off the back of a New Zealand derby. Yet again, going to be putting both of those in an episode, but unfortunately, that's just how it's falling at the moment. They're 2 of the teams we definitely need to come back and play every time the way the Mariners are going, and of course with the Phoenix being our New Zealand rivals. But hopefully, even if we lose that game, we can win the rest around it. And if we can just beat the other teams, which we've been doing pretty well so far this season, we might be able to go one better than last season and pick up the A-League title in the second season of this save. So those good results we picked up in the A-League over those struggling teams have seen us go 6 points clear on top of the table. Hopefully that continues first up in today's episode when we do host the Western Sydney Wanderers. But of course they did beat us earlier this season quite badly, 3-0 away from home. That one was over at the CommBank Stadium pretty bad result. In fact, it was only a 2-0 loss. The 3-0 did come at home against the Central Coast. Hopefully get some revenge on them over at Sauce Bottle Stadium in tomorrow's episode, but that was a pretty poor performance from us over in Parramatta. Hopefully we can do a bit better here at Mount Smart, but unfortunately a couple of injuries that we'll have to deal with. Not just Adam does FM, of course that doesn't matter because he can't quite play yet, but a few players have just come back from injuries, and Alex Paulson, Hassan Jallo and Georgios Victoros, but Stefan Negro still out with that torn calf muscle for 4 weeks to 2 months. To be fair, those injuries not quite as bad as they were during that most recent patch of games that I have played with. Quite a few players out during the course of those games, likes of Nathan Lobo, and also Stefan Malk was missing during the course of yesterday's episode as well. And we do tend to play a lot better when he is in the team, so we may actually be a bit stronger for today's episode than we were for yesterday's, and hopefully can pick up 2 more wins and maybe extend that gap on the Mariners going into tomorrow's episode. But first up, hopefully a chance for us here, grab some revenge on the Western Sydney Wanderers as we take them on with Marco the Snake Rudan in charge from Mount Smart. And here are the team sheets for this first game of today's episode. We will look for some revenge on the Wanderers. Just one change to our usual best 11, and that is that Fernandzi does come on the bench in place of Ihataran. But apart from that, Stefan Malk is back. We're at full strength, hopefully can put out a good performance. Western Sydney are still going with quite a defensive formation. We're 10 points clear of them. Hopefully we can make it 13 and maybe extend our gap on top of the league over the Mariners. And it's taken a long time for the first highlight of this game, but we are in position here. Alex Paulson has the ball and throws it out there to Callan Elliott. Forgot again to change our kit to black, but to be fair, not too much of a clash today as Western Sydney are in the all-white. We're in our blue and white hoops. A nice ball there forward for Stefan Malk. Tight angle. We'll try and beat Thomas in goal, but a good save there. Make sure it's corner that shot. Probably from too tight an angle to beat one of the better goalkeepers in the A-League, but a chance now for us from a corner. Dabango puts that into the mix. So someone gets their head on the end of that one. Just goes wide on the front foot with that first highlight that we saw, but it is still 0-0, albeit not too long off the back of that. It's a throw, and Callan Elliott takes this down our right-hand side. Stefan Malk starts to cut inside, albeit running backwards. Now back to Mitchell Pascali. Plays it forward for Malk. Lovely ball there for Ronaldo. A tackle. It falls to Malk, who picks up his second goal of the season, his first game back properly from that injury which he was dealing with during the course of yesterday's episode. And he, to be fair, is quite a vital cog for us here, as I've said, at AFC Auckland. We do tend to struggle when he's not in that cam role, and he's there to pick up the scraps from that tackle on Ronaldo, bundle that one home into the top left corner, and we take a 1-0 lead just before halftime. And that was it for the first half, just those 2 highlights, a couple of minutes shy of halftime, and thankfully we did pick up a goal in the second. I'm a little bit fortunate, but Stefan Malk rocketed that one home into the top left corner, and to be fair, slightly on top stats-wise, albeit with Western Sydney not having hit a shot on target. That's obviously probably going to be the case if a team's going to be like that. We're going to make a couple of subs though down our left-hand side. Debunga on a yellow card. Lobo back from injury can come on for him. And also Tormine struggling on a 6.3. We'll bring on the player who should be better attribute-wise in the young Georgian, and Georgi Fernandzi. Will give him some game time on camera for the first time since he's joined, and hopefully can help us make sure that we hold on to all 3 points and this 1-0 lead. And just shy of the hour mark, got the first highlight here of the second half. Unfortunately, looks like it might be in favour of the Wanderers. They have a throw-in inside the final third, quite similar position to where Callan Elliott had the throw-in, which we scored from in the second highlight of the game. But they got the ball here down their left-hand side, but good work there from Elliott to win that one back for us. And now it is Jallo who is on the ball. The Jallo shot loses it, but it somehow gets passed back there to Ronaldo. Big mistake there from the Western Sydney Wanderers defence, and Ronaldo will just loop that one over the top of Thomas in goal, albeit might have got a touch on that. We'll see the replay here. What happened? Kutapov wins that ball off of Jallo, plays it across the face of goal, albeit from a long way out. It's a bad pass, and Ronaldo can get on the end of that one, tries to chip Thomas. He gets a good hand on it, but still finds its way into that top right corner, and we take a 2-0 lead off the back of that. I think we'll play things safe now and take off Malk coming back from injury for Bruce Azumi, the only player on a heavy workload going into this game. But hopefully we'll get all 3 points from this one, having just taken a 2-0 lead. And just making our way into the last 20 minutes of this game, and I think it's now time for us to make our last 2 substitutions. We could take our time with these. We want to make sure these players do get some ratings. First up, we'll take off the Jallo shot on a 6.4 for Gianni Bazookas, and also Nick Sullivan can come on for Tewa Tamer, still sitting on a yellow card suspension. and hopefully make sure we hold on to this 2-0 lead. And we're into the last 5 minutes of this game. This one hasn't been up to too much apart from the highlights that we have seen. All of them have been in our favour, and thankfully we've made the most of them. Western Sydney have done next to nothing in attack, and thankfully we've made the most of that with a first half goal to Stefan Malk and a second half one to Ronald. To be fair, both goals a little bit fortunate. Couple of errors you could say from Western Sydney, albeit the Malk one, but unlucky that tackle on Ronald. The ball did fall to him, but thankfully he put it away. The second half goal, definitely a mistake there from one of the Western Sydney defenders. Thankfully, Ronald made the most of that. He was definitely player of the match with a goal and an assist, but thankfully we were the better team in that game and made it count and keep our winning roll going here at AFC Auckland. A 2-0 win over the Wanderers, but a revenge for earlier this season, and that will mean we stay top of the table going to the second game of today's episode, which on paper should be more winnable when we take on the Perth Glory, albeit of course they did beat us the last time we played them in that second round of the Australian League Cup. But for now, we go 9 points clear on top of the A-League off the back of that win over Marco the Snake Rudan and the Western Sydney Wanderers. So a good win for us there first up in today's episode, albeit we haven't quite got until the second game where we do take on the Perth Glory. 2-week gap between the games now that we do play in the second half of the season, but also some stuff has come up. As you can see, still 6 points clear of the Central Coast Mariners. They just did enough to beat the Brisbane Roar. Sydney FC though, now 9 points behind us down in third. We might be turning this into a bit of a two-horse race for the A-League title, albeit still 9 games to go this season, but they drew with Perth. So that's interesting. If we keep picking up the wins, that could really narrow this title race down to a top 2 battle from last season. But we're coming back on the Tuesday before we take on the Perth Glory because a transfer embargo has been enforced, because we're in takeover talks properly. I think something's about to happen involving a local investor in Daniel McNally. Apparently he's going to be parting with £50,000 to seize control, which doesn't seem like a lot of money, especially because the finances are a lot worse than that. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully he can invest a bit more money into the club, and we'll see shortly if he might be a bit of a tycoon. I don't think he will be, but we'll see if he takes us over and what that does to these awful club finances. And probably in the words of my son's Uruguayan mother, that was fast, only a day on from those takeover talks starting. It's been completed. So there's 1 day there for this takeover to take place. It's been completed. Not a lot has changed. We've got a personal message. No plans to provide the club with any investment at this stage, which looks on the top of it to be a bit disappointing. Club vision expectations, these have changed slightly. These days they just want us to give 1-year contracts for players over 33, 2 years for players over 31. So they don't mind us keeping players around who are on the older side, which is thankful because most of those players are the ones who are homegrown nation out of Australia, still want us to finish mid-table, reach later stages of the Australian Cup, also work towards repairing the club's financial damage. Not sure how that's my issue because I've been working within the budget, but anyway, we'll see how that goes. But also, they have lifted the transfer embargo, which is good, albeit I think we've already done all our business for this window off the back of those sales of Marinovic and of Ahataran. But going over to the finances, thankfully Daniel McNally has just boosted the overall balance by a decent amount, about £5 million, because these days we have just under 1 million, and that's thankfully the finances these days in an okay position instead of being quite insecure, despite the fact I did get us back under that wage budget with those sales that we did make and just the additions of Wood and of Kranadze. But thankfully, the finances all good here now at AFC Auckland. Should mean my son can get a bit of extra training here at the club, and maybe we can improve those youth facilities to try and get a better youth intake for next season. But next up for us on the pitch, it is the Perth Glory. We've gone forward off the back of that takeover going through and are now on the match day on the Saturday night, the 1st of February, so definitely gone forward quite a bit off the back of the end of yesterday's episode. This is the team that beat us for the first time in that most recent round of the Australian League Cup, albeit as you saw, didn't put out a strong team for that game, but before then we did beat them in the 3 prior meetings when we took them on in the A-League. This is a game that we could do a bus trip for, but with this one having included a youth intake, plus a takeover, plus some transfers, I do think that might make the episode a little bit long, so we'll save this bus trip up for the 3rd season. I think we can save up the Perth Glory for a future bus trip. We do have an injury check before we get stuck into this game, albeit not too much to update in terms of our usual 11 that we've picked for this one, because the extra injury is to our backup goalkeeper. in Michael Vood. So it does mean we're going to risk things with no goalkeeper on the bench. We did that for that most previous game, seeing Stefan Malk was coming back from injury. Hopefully it won't prove too costly, but unfortunately Michael Vood picked up an injury when playing the under-19s. He tore his wrist ligaments, which does sound a little bit dodgy, but it was during a game. He is out for 2 to 5 weeks, so unfortunately our backup New Zealand goalkeeper also not available here on duty at AFC Auckland, albeit not bad timing. The All Whites don't play for a little while yet until we get into our next game of World Cup qualifying, which, just updating on that doesn't take place for another month and a half when we do take on Tahiti, but he should be back in time for that, but unfortunately won't be on the bench for this next game. But hopefully no injury to Alex Paulson and it won't be an issue, and we'll come back shortly and hopefully keep our nice gap on top of the A-League when we take on the Glory over in Perth. And team sheets for the second game of today's episode, there are the Perth Glory. They are going with a 4-3-3 play to watch there in defensive midfield. Tsukamoto, his contract is expiring soon and is a player who I was actually quite keen on going to this season. Wasn't interested these days, quite interested. A DM with a lot of potential, could be someone to keep an eye out on for the third season of the save if we can get him. We're the same as we were for that first game of today's episode, especially with no Michael Vood available, but hopefully we can make it 2 wins from 2 and maybe extend our gap over the Mariners. And there's an early highlight in this one, unlike in that Western Sydney game. Yet again, we're in the blue and the white hoops. The Perth Glory are in the purple. Early chance here as Bungo gets the ball back somehow. Tries to put that one top left corner. Just goes wide there though. Tries to beat Ollie Sailboat in goal, but doesn't quite hit the target. This field is quite narrow, you will notice. From the camera angle that we see, does feel like the players in a bit of condensed space. We'll see how we get on here in this one, but it's 0-0 just going past the 15-minute mark. And just coming to the last couple of minutes of this first half, so far not a lot of highlights that we have seen, but the Perth Glory here on the attack for the first time in the game so far. We've been well and truly on the front foot, but thankfully we do win the ball back and a chance for us to do something here on the counter-attack. Stefan Malk plays that one forward to Ronald. He eventually returns the favour, puts it away, but I'm pretty sure there that Stefan Malk was a mile offside. I think that pass came a couple of touches too late there from our Brazilian right winger, who one day should be a New Zealand right winger, but unfortunately he was indeed offside. I don't think this check's going to take too long. He's an absolute mile offside there, is Malk, and it's still 0-0. And that was it for the first half, just those two highlights, one offside goal and before then a chance to Bungo, which just went wide, but as you can see stats-wise, well and truly the better team in this game so far. Perth have done absolutely nothing, but unlike in that Western Sydney game so far, unable to make it count. Yet again, Gavin Tormeen at left wing on a poor rating. He needs to sort that out soon because Fernandez, as I said, attribute-wise, should be better. So we'll bring him on for the second half and see if he can make a difference. But to be fair, we're playing quite well. Hopefully, we can score a goal and make sure we pick up all 3 points here over in Perth. And it hasn't taken long for the first highlight of the second half yet. Again, looks like we might be on the attack here, albeit a thrown inside of our own half. Stefan Malk does quite well there to keep that ball. Now Edema plays that one forward to Ronald, goes back to Pascali, and Malk is back on the ball, tries to make some headway down this left-hand side, and does get in behind, squares that one for the George, and he goes down to Bungo, who will take on a shot. It goes over the bar, and they don't go back to the penalty shout there on the Georgian. Surprisingly, I thought that one might be a decent chance for a penalty, but unfortunately the referee did not agree. And now for the first time, Perth are on the attack down the other end of the pitch, and Luke Ivanovic, he FMs us with, I think, their first shot of the entire game, and we go 1-0 down. Off the back of that, we will demand more, because that's so annoying. They've done nothing all game, but to be fair, we've been a bit wasteful with our chances. They put that one away. Alex Paulson going a bit of a weird direction with that attempted save. Off the back of that, a chance for us here to get it back to 1-1, which I think is fair, because so far, up until then, been complete dominance for us, apart from the fact we hadn't scored a goal. Hopefully, we can do it from this highlight, but that's a really frustrating goal to concede early in the second half. Hopefully, we can find a way to fight back at the moment, just trying to make our way out from the back. Ronaldo will pick out Elliott there down the right-hand side, just tries to size his man up, plays one over the top there for Stefan Malk. It comes off the post, but Ronaldo's there to poke that one home. It will count, his 9th goal of the season, and thankfully not behind for long, because that felt really harsh, as you'll see shortly with the stats. Perth have been up to very little up until that goal, but a bit fortunately, Stefan Malk with a shot. Sale came out to save it, didn't do too much. It came off the post, thankfully. Ronaldo, right place, right time. And it's 1-1 a couple of minutes in to the second half. And just going into the last half hour of this game, still 1-1 off the back of those couple of highlights to start off the second half. But Hassan Jallow up front is yet again struggling on a 6.4. So Big Gianni can come on for him and hopefully help us win this game. And shortly off the back of that change up front, Ollie Sale there on the ball tries to pump that one towards the halfway line, but good work there from one of our players, and we get a chance here to launch an attack inside of the Perth Glory half. Hopefully now that we've finally scored a goal, we can score a couple and pick up 3 points, which up until that goal that Perth scored looked like it should be the result. And a big chance there for Stefan Malkit set up by the Georgian and Georgi Gvernadze, and that makes it 2-1. And hopefully, as I said, now we can kick on and make sure we pick up all 3 points from this game, because the first half, definitely the best team in this one. A little bit annoying that Perth has scored the only goal from the only chance so far, but good work there from our new Georgian, and Stefan Malk continues his great form in that cam role. As I've said a few times, such an important player for us in that role. He makes it 2-1, albeit only a few minutes later. The Glory here do have a throw-in. They're going to try and make their way out from the back. Interesting pass, and Cullen Elliott can win that one back for us, and he finds Ronaldo. Good chance here to make it 3-1, but just puts it wide, and it's still 2-1 to AFC Auckland. And nearly inside the last 15 minutes of this game, and Debungo here sizing up a corner, looks far post there for Georgi Gvernadze. Bazookas tries to put that one into the mixer for Ronaldo. Good chance, but big save there from Ollie Sale to keep the Perth Glory in this game at 2-1. And off the back of that, we'll make a sub before we get into the last 15 minutes of this game. To be fair, most players out there are in decent shape, but I think we'll take off Debungo on that 6.7. He's a player who can be quite injury prone, so coming on for him, Nathan Lobo is worked to hold on to our 2-1 lead. And very short off the back of trying to implement some time-wasting things here as we make our way into the last 5 minutes of this game. As you can see, Cullen Elliott is taking his time over this frame. We've told our guys to be more disciplined and also just slow that tempo down a little bit. We're on the attack here from a throw-in. Gvernadze was inside the box, bit of a mess there, but Stefan Malk will put that one home, and the flag has not gone up from the assistant referee in that top left corner, so it does mean that goal will stand, and that should be the one which does seal this result. That can be actually quite often off the back of us going a bit more disciplined instead of more expressive, as you'd expect with the vertical tiki-taka. But that is an absolute mess there inside the box, but thankfully the ball did fall to Stefan Malk. He will pick up a double, and off the back of that, we'll make our last couple of subs. We'll take off a Tamer still sitting on that yellow card suspension, be safe with him. Nick Sullivan can come on, and also with our final sub, we might give some game time here to young Matt Wilson. He's a player up from our under-19s as right-wing cover, seeing as currently actually got Jack Henry Sinclair as the backup to Cullen Elliott instead of someone from our under-19s. We'll see what Jack Henry Sinclair can do as a right-back for the remainder of the season, or at least until Negro does come back, which I don't think now is that far away. It was a pretty big injury. With the 2 week gaps that we've got, that one shouldn't take too long for him to heal from, so thankfully might be back to proper full strength sooner rather than later. But as we make our way into 5 minutes of added time, Perth here on the attack for only really the second time in this game. Ivanovic tries to put that one into the mixer. Thankfully, we clear our lines, and a chance here for young Matt Wilson up from the under-19s to do something. One of the players from our first youth intake that we did get here last season. Of it, this safe, we now have the ball just settling things down that right-hand side, but hopefully one more goal just to make sure we pick up all 3 points here, even though it looked dodgy for a while off the back of that goal that Perth scored. Good work there from Wilson. Squares it for Bazookas. Ollie Sale on his boat is in absolutely no man's land, and Gianni Bazookas off of the bench. He'll pick up a goal, and that will seal it, makes it 4-1 with only a couple of minutes left of added time. Cullen Elliott makes his way down this right-hand side. Nice ball forward there to Wilson, and a lovely square that for Bazookas. Ollie Sale tries to save it eventually. Just not sure why he tried it then when he was nowhere near the goal, but that makes it 4-1 off the back of that. One more highlight in this game. The Perth Glory might look for a consolation goal, but to be fair, they've only had, I think, one shot so far in this game, and they did score from it, so that a bit frustrating in terms of our defence, but thankfully we've done enough off the back of that with our attack to take a 4-1 lead as we make our way to the last 2 minutes. Thankfully, Adam Mitchell will clear that one for us, and we try and do something on the attack, but the Georgian a bit sloppy on the ball there, and Ivanovic plays the ball down our right-hand side. Taggart does get in behind, and a good finish into that top left corner from Adam Taggart to make it 4-2. A little bit leaky at the back in this game, it's fair to say, with the chances that Perth are creating. Ivanovic here just takes a little bit of time on the ball before playing a curveball for, which does get in behind our centre backs in Nunez and in Mitchell, and it's a good finish as well past Alex Paulson to make it 4-2. Thankfully, won't hurt us too much, but as you can see, 2 shots, 2 on target, and 2 goals. A little bit frustrating, but thankfully in between those, we did score 4 goals. A couple to Stefan Malk, also Ronaldo picked one up as well as Yanni Bazookas off the bench in the end. It's a fairly comfortable 4-2 win, albeit, as I said, a bit of a scare there with that first goal that we did concede off the back of a dominant first half where we somehow did not score a goal, but in the end, that is a pretty comfortable 4-2 win, bit of revenge on the Glory for that defeat we suffered in the Australian League Cup. And that will make sure we go into tomorrow's episode with a pretty good chance to try and put a big gap on the Mariners and potentially go a long way to sealing our first A-League title. So 2 good results for us there in the A-League. In today's episode, it does still mean we've got a 6-point gap over the Mariners. They won both games during the course of the episode as well, including a 2-0 win over the Jets. Well, we did beat the Perth Glory, but as you can see, Sydney FC a long way behind us now, 12 points. That's because the day after that match, they got defeated in Wellington by the Phoenix Nguyen, picks up a hat-trick to cancel out a goal to Patrick Wood. So it does look like, with 8 games left, might be a bit of a 2-horse race for the title. And tomorrow, we play a big game where we do take on the Central Coast Mariners off the back of a New Zealand derby. And to be fair, the Phoenix are certainly rising up that table in the second half of the season. That could be tricky, even though that one is at Mount Smart Stadium. But that will do it for today's episode. 2 wins to keep ourselves on top of the A-League. Also some transfers, a takeover, and of course, my son through the youth intake. If you enjoyed today's episode, then do remember to go down below, leave a thumbs up on the video, and if you haven't done so already and are enjoying the series here on the channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn that notification bell on as well. We'll come back tomorrow to big games, as I said, either side of that 7th round tie in the Australia Cup, a New Zealand derby at Mount Smart when we take on an informed Phoenix, and then a potential title decider. If we win this one, it would go a long way to sealing the toilet seat, which is otherwise known as the A-League. We'll take on the Central Coast Mariners over in Gosford. So until then, thank you very much for watching. Keep on keeping on, and I'll see you then. Cheers.